Hello and welcome again to episode number 14 of the Dandelion Reflections. Hello, Caroline.
Hi, Christopher. How are you
So,
today?
I was just going to ask the same thing. I'm fine, thank you, and I hope you are too.
Yes, I'm well. Thank you very much.
And I think we have a another very interesting let's see. Oh, I got something in my eye. I'm sorry. A very interesting topic today. And well, the initial thought was, I'm sorry, my right now I got something in
Take your
my eye.
time.
Um, the initial thought was that we named this episode Avoidance and Confrontation, and then you, Colleen, had this wonderful thought. Uh, would you want to
hmm
share it with us?
I think an app title would be Avoidance versus Embracing, right? Because confrontation, there's something a little bit negative to that. Like the connotation is more negative, and we find that resisting a challenge or fighting it sometimes is not helpful, but embracing is more like going with the flow. So I felt like
Right.
it was a more positive reframing.
It is so on point, and we aligned with what
hmm
we usually try to convey in
Right.
our vlogs here. And I love that. And it didn't hit me before you mentioned it, and then it hit me like a train. Speaking
Well,
of confrontation here.
what
Boom.
we are doing together, Christopher, is like a co-creation, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
our brains are coming together and ideas and we bounce them off each other. That's why we come up with,
That's
optimal formulation for certain things. So,
yes. Wonderful. So, let me see. Um, avoidance and embrace versus embracing. Um, so, let us shed some light on a very common situation. And here's one from my real life: taxes.
ah, yeah,
So
right.
this is avoidance that
hmm
I'm going by. I must
Me too.
admit you too.
Guilty of it.
and and I you know not only taxes but the whole bookkeeping stuff. No,
Mhm.
what's it called? It's not called bookkeeping. It's called something else.
Oh, I don't know, bookkeeping
Well,
or yeah.
you, most of our audience maybe know what we mean. Balance sheets and stuff,
hmm
and uh, well,
Budget.
whatever.
Yeah.
Budget. Thank you. So
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I really uh do not like it, and I tend to avoid it. And I really see myself, if I do see the need, and now I have to really do it. There
Yeah.
is a kind of confrontation which leads to even more
Right.
detest to do it, right?
Yes.
Uh, so when you came up with the embracing, okay, it has to be done, right? It has to be done because
Yeah.
the consequences is if I don't do it, they are even worse
hmm
if uh, than than me just embracing it, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, some people will refer to that as the second arrow when we resist something. So let's say there's an unpleasant situation happening or major adversity, that's the first arrow. That's the blow, that's the wound. But we're adding to that
Oh,
by just resisting, by
hmm
trying to avoid, right? So like you said, embracing would make it easier and it gets the thing done. We can't avoid it. There are things we can't avoid in life.
hmm
And that's how you said it when you came up with the idea for this podcast is like the only way out is through. Well, yeah,
Oh,
there are many things that we just can't avoid.
hmm
So, yeah. it's better to tackle them and stop procrastinating.
Yeah. And then we covered this labeling before in one of our earlier episodes. Because what we do, before we embrace it, we
Mhm.
label it as something negative, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is exactly what gets in the way is the story around it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't like it, or the judgment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why meditation helps us um, go through these things because it suspends judgment and because the judgment becomes an obstacle. So
Mm-hmm.
our mind gets caught up in the story. So we should try to avoid that.
Is there any um, good explanation how our brain functions when we fall into this trap historically?
Yes, I believe that you have also listed that as one of the mechanisms, but avoidance is also one of the core strategies after trauma. It's like part
Mm-hmm.
of our fight, flight, freeze, fawn system, right? The four F's that I like to call it. So avoidance is like freeze. We're frozen. We're not confronting the
Right.
situation or embracing it or
Mm-hmm.
finding a solution. We're just not doing anything. So it's avoidance. And the extreme form of that is fainting. So completely zoning out, and being in denial of a reality. So that's built in our brains to
Mm-hmm.
survive. But we apply that to taxes or other situations like that,
Mm-hmm.
paying the bills, cleaning up the house,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And somehow I have to think of these hoarders that
Mm-hmm.
may be a similar pattern there.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that in our blog on or podcast on decluttering.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So there might be that sense of paralysis or avoidance of making a decision
Yeah.
of do I want to keep this or not? Do I want to let go or not?
So one could say, it would be safe to say that it's a fear that takes hold of us, and by
Mm-hmm.
that our ego.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, the ego is that kind of entity or mechanism that really maintains those responses, the trauma
Right.
based responses, including avoidance. Because
Right.
the ego creates stories, the ego
Right.
feeds those
That's
stories.
that's wonderful. That's very important. The ego is the story creator, and when we tend to fall and trust and find it interesting to believe the ego and its story.
Yeah. So, how do you think we challenge that? How do we step out of that avoidance to ultimately
Well,
embrace?
the the first step, as we usually say, um, is to become aware, and to
Mm.
become aware, of course, needs us first to slow down and then really. If we're in a stressful situation, we usually don't uh, listen to our inner voices because we're in this fight or flight or faint mode, and we don't really take in of what's really happening around us because we're running away, or we're trying to fight, and we're stressed, and then our all our very um, most basic brain functions kick in,
Hmm.
or no, maybe I should rather say all the peripheral functions are cut off, that we need for planning or for reasoning,
Right.
and so to I sometimes see myself, when we're when we were kids and we had this go-kart, this tramp cart, where we were uh, jumping, and we were going very fast, and all of a sudden we went down a hill, and we see, oh no, we're going much too fast. So,
Mhm.
uh, just stepping out, take my when I had my go-kart, I had very bad brakes, so I
Mhm.
needed to take my feet or my shoes, of course, to
Right.
stop it. So
Mhm.
that's sometimes I remembered that I did that as a child. So stepping out of this game, stepping out of this roller coaster of life, sometimes
Right.
put your
Mhm.
feet on the ground to stop yourself from speeding,
Mhm.
and just to be able to slow down and look around you. What is really happening? What is, not what is my brain making up? What's
Wow,
my
that's
ego?
fascinating. I like this image of the go-kart because the go-kart might have been some avoidance or escape.
Yes.
You were in movement, but and it's for entertainment and it's wonderful, but we could use that as a metaphor, like what
Yeah.
we do as adults. We have treadmills, the treadmill of our jobs that are just becoming so mechanical or
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. So yeah, we need to step out of that to really confront or face a challenge, which is
Hmm.
we're dissatisfied and we're just numbing ourselves with pleasure, with sensation, with workaholism.
Hmm.
So yeah, so now when we step out of it, we're on the ground, we're grounded, and now we can embrace. See, well, first of all, you mentioned self-awareness. That's key. And
Hmm.
then once we see, we can actually feel more equipped to deal with a
Yes.
challenge.
So I before we met today, I jotted down
Yes.
something that I personally don't really know what it means, but I'm sure you know more about it, and that's the grief
Mm.
cycle.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. I'm
to
not.
navigate it. So what is this?
The grief cycle.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I know what that is.
Oh, damn.
Huh. Tell me. I want to learn.
Okay. So it came up in my search for uh, around this topic, and uh, someone stated the grief cycle and why proce- processing emotions is essential.
Right. Oh, okay. So we have to go through grief in order to go through an experience or
So
embrace.
maybe, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
That I'm sure, you know what? I'm sure this is exactly what this embracing means, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's because we're avoiding grief also. When we do avoid, it's because we're avoiding the
Oh.
grief that comes with an experience. Like we have to let go of an idea of the world we had, this false idea that everything would be perfect or blah 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 or
Right.
go according to plan. So maybe there's something like that. There's a grief of our sense of invulnerability, our sense of omnipotence, but we have to
Hmm.
grieve. So maybe that's what they mean by the grief cycle. I don't know. But
You
there's a
know
grief
what?
process. Hmm.
And something else comes into my mind. I remember again Bruce Lipton referring about the fear of death
Hmm.
that is basically in mo lying
Yeah.
in most of our
Yeah.
fears.
I agree. Yes, that's
Um,
fear.
and
Yeah.
and maybe that's exactly what you, yeah, what you referred to, or what came up here, but I didn't really
Hmm.
process it in the best way. So with your input now,
Yeah.
that must be this fear of death in the long run of
Yeah.
whatever challenge we see. We don't
Hmm.
want to suffer. We don't want to uh, die, but
Hmm.
sometimes by avoiding it,
Yeah.
what happens? We make it worse, right?
Yes, we have other collateral fears that emerge.
Mm,
Um, and I think they point towards that fear of death, which is very abstract, right? Death
it
is
is, yeah.
abstract, becomes less and less abstract as we get older, as we
Hmm.
have physical problems or ailments, or we see people around us dying, people our age or people close to our age. So it becomes a little bit less abstract. But yeah, in order maybe to tackle it, yeah, we have those accessible fears or tangibles like
Hmm.
fear of not having enough money or fear of losing one's job, fear of losing a partner, etc.,
Right.
fear of becoming sick. But
Hmm.
these fear of not being liked,
Oh my God, yeah. That's very
uh,
common nowadays, I'm guessing.
yes, yes. So fear of judgment, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So so it how do we get out of it? When
Mm-hmm.
we have slowed down, we are taking in what really is. So how can we get into the next step to see clearly or see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. I feel like once we acknowledge the suffering, and when you said that, it's really actually something that they talked about at a meditation retreat I attended yesterday. The person who was leading it said, dukkha, not seeing dukkha, and dukkha is a Pali word for suffering. So not
Hmm.
suffering is suffering. So um, once we see that, it allows us to actually connect with the pain, connect with the suffering. We can't
Hmm.
connect with it without seeing it. We have to see it first and admit it's there. And once we connect with it, we can open our heart and mind and access this spacious awareness and compassion. And once we have compassion, it really gives us the strength and resilience to get through what we need to go through because this compassion is directed at ourselves, but also at others who have gone through suffering. We feel suddenly more connected with others. Oh, yeah, there are other people who suffer like me, just like
Right.
me. There are people who are going through the emotions of fear, of anger, of sadness, grief, etc., despair. So it opens up something, I think, when we see the suffering. What do you think?
You know what? Here comes. We've talked about my tombola brain uh,
Mm-hmm,
earlier too, and here's what comes up in my brain just
mm-hmm,
now. Well, when we become aware of other people in a similar situation, uh, I see this scene where lions take a gazelle
mm,
or an antelope in the African steppe,
yeah.
and they're the other impalas around it look and watch the lions eating that impala
Mm-hmm,
that they just caught. And what is it they're doing? They're learning. They're watching it.
yeah.
Okay, this is what happens if you're not fast enough. So I don't know if this is uh, an appropriate example or if it has anything to do with us humans, but
Yeah,
becoming aware of the suffering of others, is
right,
that something that is can be a teacher or even of our own? Becoming
right.
aware of our own suffering can
Wow,
become a teacher, can it?
absolutely. Christopher, these are all learning experiences. There's no such thing as a bad experience because it's going to help us learn something, it's going to teach us something. So you're totally right. The experiences of others are our teachers just as much as our own
Hmm.
because we're not going to go through everything in life, obviously, right? But
Yeah.
we can still listen to someone's story and it can have some value in it to inspire
Hmm.
us. Oh, this person had this challenge, like they had They have gone through cancer and this is how they coped with it. Well, I'm going through some kind of uncertainty in my life right now. It's not cancer, but I don't know when it's going to end, if it's going to end. So, but I can still draw upon their own
Hmm.
resilience. So it's called vicarious resilience and apply
Oh.
it to myself,
Hmm.
to my. So I love what you said. Yeah, that animals, I guess other animals would do that. So we do that too. We learn from other people's hardship. That's why we need to share stories also,
Yeah.
not stay alone with our suffering.
Oh, yeah. That's a big and important point. And I please, everyone who's listening, reflect about that,
Yeah.
reflect on that, how important that is to share, uh, to find someone
Hmm.
or know that there is always someone out there that you can uh, trust and share your suffering with. And, just sharing can do a lot already. Maybe some other person has some good points that you want to take in and consider,
Yes,
and that make it easier to get through whatever is weighing you down at the moment.
exactly.
So, all right. So becoming, I, I lost my my thread now. Where were we? Um,
We talked
so,
about learning from others. So suffering as teacher, as a
right.
teacher.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And then I know something that is also very helpful, besides sharing, is also reflection with oneself. And I know you are a big fan of journaling.
Yes, I am. Yes.
So, uh, just in a brief description, what is it that journaling helps us with?
Mhm. Yes. Very good question. Journaling allows us to slow down and pause. So we basically look at our whole experience and we try to process it. So it's like, you know, hardship often hits us all at once and it's really overwhelming.
Hmm.
However, the journaling allows us to take it piece by piece, little by little, to deconstruct it or unpack it, and we can process it at our own pace. And at the same time, we can also analyze a little bit and like make connections. Oh, yeah, now I see clearly, I connect the dots, or this
Hmm.
happened to someone else I know, or analyzing or looking at our emotions and really accepting them and embracing them. So that helps with the self-awareness of the suffering because we can pause and pay attention to how a situation affects us.
Hmm.
So it's the opposite of running away from the suffering, right? We're just really diving
Yes.
in it with pen and paper, and it's actually also a form of purging too, which is
Hmm.
good. So we're kind of cleansing difficult emotions by that process.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned step by step, and that is very good, because it's something uh, important to do when we're in the middle of avoiding. We tend to avoid or not embrace this huge pile of obstacle, problem, um, um, tasks
Yeah.
uh, that we see in front of us, a huge mountain, and
Mm-hmm.
but every mountain is taken down piece by piece, right? And or you find the steps to climb it, and
Yeah.
to prevail, and that's something that we tend to forget. But if we step
Mm-hmm.
some steps back and see and break down this huge chunk of problems into uh, smaller problems, that's much easier to tackle. And
What a
then we
great
only can do that by, becoming aware what is.
Yes. Yes. And I like your framework of breaking down the tasks into, yeah, a few minor, I mean, more manageable, smaller
Mm,
tasks. Exactly. But we can't do that if we're not self-aware. If we don't have the big picture. It's
mm.
hard to do, right? If we don't look at the situation. Yes.
And the mindset that we are when we're in the middle of a stressful situation or in the middle of giving up because all these uh, tasks are piling up on us, then our again our brain, our ego
Yeah.
tends to
Hmm.
enhance this even more by pulling even more problems. And oh my God, I have this, and oh, this is also going bad. And oh no, my boss is angry, and oh, my wife is angry because I'm not getting home in time this evening either. And
Yeah.
uh,
Mm.
but then finding the possibility to, step down and oh well, what can I do right now to make this big pile a little, just a little smaller? That's so important.
Yes. And as you were talking, I couldn't help but think about one of the stories that come up often when we're confronted with difficulties, and it is, oh no, I shouldn't be suffering. Oh no, I shouldn't. Why me? Why is it happening to me? So we create that other unnecessary suffering
Hmm.
because we have to repeat to ourselves that suffering is an inevitable part of life. Everyone
Hmm.
suffers and it's universal. So there's no point in trying to fight that and also think like, why, what did I do to deserve that? Most of the time
Oh
we
yeah.
don't deserve what happens to us, right?
Mm.
It's just life. Sometimes we bring things upon ourselves, but often it has nothing to do with who we are as a person if there's something
Hmm.
unfortunate happening. So,
But since we are just a moment ago found out that all these what's happening to us is actually teaching us something that
yes,
these are
yes,
opportunities to learn. So
yeah.
these can be a blessing if we are open to this thought, right?
Yes, I remember something like I, I I had lost a child, a pregnancy at 24 weeks, and I was
Oh.
in distress. It was very sad, and it was
Hmm.
one of the hardest times of my life as a mother. And I remember the my doctor at the time. He was so supportive and wonderful, and
Hmm.
he kind of really guided me through that process. I didn't know what to do, and anyway, I was like, as I was losing my child, my daughter, and he was there, and I said, oh well, I guess that's an experience, right? And he looked at me, he said, it's not a good experience. And it stayed with me, and I was like, I do not view it that way, as sad as I was, because I knew it was teaching me something. I
Hmm.
knew at the time that I was learning from that. I didn't know exactly what, and it came years later, little by little, and I'm still
Oh
learning from
wow.
that. But it was, I thought, well, that's an experience. And I knew at that time I needed to see that as an experience. Not
Hmm.
bad, not good, but an experience. I didn't want to label it. I thought, this is happening to me. I don't know why, but I'm learning from it. There's something for me to get out from that experience. So,
And the moment one, thank you for sharing this. This is a really a traumatic experience, I'm
it
sure.
was. Yeah.
And but by turning around,
Mm-hmm.
first not labeling, but
Mm-hmm.
then trying to find what is it that I can learn from it. Not even if you don't find it right now, you
Right.
will find later.
Yes.
And then it turns around as a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, the life has gone.
Yeah.
Uh, can we change anything about that? No.
No.
But we can try to find whatever it is that is hidden inside of that, that we can take something away from it that can help us in the future.
Yes, I found the teachings from that experience, and this
Wonderful.
daughter's kind of really brief passage into my life really was full of messages for me. And I journaled
Mhm.
about that, and I'm like, I am grateful to have been in a way, chosen to be home for her, even though she didn't live long. And
Yes.
I had two beautiful sons right after her, and they would
Yeah.
not have been in this world if she had lived. Because,
Right.
you know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
timing and everything, and maybe we would have stopped after two children, you know. So, so life took, a turn that was all good after all,
Mm-hmm.
as painful as it was, and it also actually allowed me to open my heart even more to other people who have gone through something like that too, because these are
Right.
really unimaginable situations. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized that my compassion increased. So I kept the good out of that situation. I decided to embrace it, and I went through the suffering. I tried to not avoid it. I was feeling pretty depressed for 3 months after that.
Yes.
And I let myself live that. I didn't try to shut that down. I thought,
Mm.
okay, day by day. I took it one day or 1 hour at a time. And
That's all you
eventually I
can do.
started again. Hmm?
That's all you can do. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah,
Did you
because
ever?
once we make room for pain, that means we're able to make room for joy too. Because if
Oh.
we shut ourselves off from the pain, well, we
Mm-hmm.
shut ourselves off for also for the good, the joy, the pleasant,
Mm.
the blissful. Yeah.
Exactly. Did you ever give her a name, your daughter?
Clara is her name.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. It was my great grandma's name. I never known her, but I've known her to be such a
Mm-hmm.
kind person
Mm-hmm.
that my grandfather was very fond of. And for me, that was very meaningful to give her the name of one of my ancestors. Yeah, Clara, which was also like, because her dad is German, so that was kind of a bicultural a name that would fit both cultures,
Yes.
that would sound good in both cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yes.
a very deep and challenging situation that you share with us there. Thank you very much. And this is, I'm sure, a wonderful ex um um uh, nah, God, example. Not I
Yeah.
wanted, I didn't. I only found experience, but it's not a wonderful experience. But it's a wonderful example for how you have managed to
Mhm.
find your way from avoiding
Yeah.
to embracing.
Right.
And yes, it's
Yeah.
going back to the idea that led to this um, episode. It was
Hmm.
the only way to get through is to get out of it is to go through it. Well, yes, uh, but this is so much more living
Yeah.
in a wonderful way, living example because in this case, Sarah is living
Hmm.
with you. Even
Yeah.
she's not there, but she is there for you, helping you and guiding you.
Yes, in unbelievable ways. Sometimes I mean, I used to have dreams of her very frequently, and
Oh,
uh, she's very much alive for me. And I had told my sons about her, so
oh
they
yeah.
knew Clara. They knew about her, and
Oh,
for me that was important to include her and for them to know that it was part of their story. Because
mm-hmm,
my oldest son was a toddler at the time, and I felt bad that he saw me sad at times, and I
mm-hmm,
was able to remain present and take care of his needs.
mm-hmm.
And but I know for a while it was challenging for me because I needed to nurture myself too, and so I was trying to balance everything. But
Yes,
he was it was wonderful, and um, I realized, and because of the topic of today, like the only way out is through. A very related example is before losing Clara, we had also had a miscarriage. And so after having lost our baby daughter, I decided to join a support group. And I've learned so much there too, because there were other grieving parents
Mm.
and we were supporting each other. And the leader of the group, she was amazing. And she said, "Did you name your first child you lost?" And I had not.
Mm.
So you see, I had to go through losing Clara to realize that I had not processed my first miscarriage. I had probably avoided a little bit the suffering
Oh.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I was not fully, or there was no closure, actually. I had experienced the difficult emotions and there was the hormonal changes too, but I had not fully processed it and there
Mm-hmm.
was no closure. So when I named Clara, we decided to also name our first baby, and it was Emmanuel.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, so we thought it could be, you know, by or whatever, multigender. Anyway, so just to say that doing rituals sometimes is a way to go through
Yes.
in a way that makes sense, that is grounding. So for me, naming was important, and doing a mini something, having a little object that would represent each child.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, these events taught me, these losses were incredible teachers.
Mm. So this is, I just want to say this is not planned.
No, I'm so
We
sorry, Ed. I didn't
that
plan
no,
that at all.
don't be
Just
sorry
came
now.
up.
I'm grateful. Thank you for introducing us to Emmanuel and Clara. And this is so wonderful, and I don't think there would can be a better example for this, how to embrace the things that we cannot change, and try to find the good in it. And
Yes.
so unbelievable.
And I'm just thinking, as I told you the name of our daughter, Clara, I
Hmm.
just realized today, Clara, of course, Clara, she brought me clarity. And it's
Oh,
saying,
yes.
like, but actually, she died like almost like on the 24th of February. So we're approaching the anniversary of her death
Hmm.
16 years ago.
Yes.
So that would be tomorrow. But anyway, Clara, thank you for bringing me clarity
Right.
about the
Wow.
human condition,
Yes.
most about suffering and resilience. So,
And now you are here helping others
yeah,
finding their clarity
yeah.
and your own, of course.
Isn't, isn't that interesting? So she's guiding me. She's been my mentor for that. Wow.
Yeah. What a
Thank you.
wonderful example for using whatever has happened to you, uh,
Yeah.
in as a guiding light for yourself and others. I see
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
I see you're stretching yourself. Did something fall off from you?
No, I
Is
just
there a
feel like
tension in you?
clarity, a lighthouse. I mean,
Mm,
we all have those lighthouses in our life. We should remember them. And Clara, I guess, is one of those. So for
yes.
someone else, it could have been an illness. For someone else, could have been um, breakup, or
Mm.
some kind of
Suffering
loss,
is, yeah.
suffering. Hmm.
Suffering is so individual, and it's so very
Yes.
individual. Yeah, we can't we don't know what will happen to us, but that's not the point, right? There,
Hmm.
suffering is inevitable.
Yeah.
Uh, or wait, what was it that
It's
all
universal and inevitable.
hardships are inevitable, but suffering is no? What
Oh,
was
it's
that
optional.
quote?
Yeah. Well,
Hmm?
hardships, well, suffering is universal. No, pain. It's between pain and suffering. I don't remember. I think pain is universal, but suffering is probably what we do with it. If we
Right.
add
That's a
another, like, a story to it, then that becomes
mm,
suffering. So suffering would be optional,
right.
right?
Right.
But the discomfort, yes, is universal. It's inevitable.
Mm,
Yeah, we'll have experiences that will crack us open.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening, Christopher. I would love to hear if you have examples of situations when you actually avoided being in a painful situation or feeling the pain and it didn't help you. And on the other hand, you did actually face the challenge and embraced it and it helped with its resolution. Do you have any such examples?
I do, but they will all fade in light of your experience. They're
Oh,
so
we can't
tiny,
compare
tiny, tiny.
that, Christopher. It's not, no.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure there are many. What maybe something that whenever I've been divorced 2 times and a diverse several breakups in my life, and they all, of course, were painful. And the more the older I became, the more the I can't say it was easier, but I what I can say is that I became better in finding the good in what
Oh,
happened.
wow.
So I wasn't I could easily more easier more easily stand up
Oh,
afterwards. And instead, I remember my first divorce. That was I was pretty
yeah.
down a long time,
Okay.
several months. But then the next
Mhm.
time, I thought there is just the avoidance was very long in my
Mm,
second divorce.
okay.
Because there were children involved then too, and
Yeah,
of course um, that made the whole thing
that's
harder.
hard.
But then it makes it even easier because you see, okay, you have to do it for the children because the children were also suffering
Yeah,
from the
children.
situation.
Yes,
So
children are.
then,
Yeah.
if I put myself,
Hmm.
if I set my own suffering down
Right.
and put the children's suffering first, then the decision was very easy.
Mm,
So and then of course with the children, you always have this light you walk towards to. You always
mm,
want to have the best for the children, or what we think is the best at that time. Of course,
yes.
whatever you think is the best for your children right now doesn't mean it will be the same in a month or a year. And we
Yeah.
can just do from and
Mhm.
decide from whatever we know right now. We can't decide
Yeah.
with any knowledge that we will have in sometime in the future because we don't. That wouldn't be fair to ourselves or others.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's always very interesting to learn and find the good. And I remember having a
Yeah.
small post-it
Mm.
very near my computer screen where it said "Find the good." And
Yeah.
the more I read this, the
Mhm.
clearer it became to me, and that the suffering is inevitable. No, pain is inevitable,
Yeah. Right.
but there's always something to take away from it. And then
Well,
it's suddenly became something positive when I learned from it.
yes. Thank you for sharing that, Christopher. And yes, divorce, separation, breakups can be very painful. And I'm very impressed that you're saying that we, as you went through different breakups, it was actually, it seemed easier, it felt easier or more
Mm.
manageable. And I'm curious to hear, like, is it because you think that you became more comfortable with who you are and it was less of a threat to be left, or you know what I mean? It's like the de-selfing, so to speak, or we're no longer
Mm.
in the ego, we know our worth as we are maturing, and therefore breakups don't affect us as much. Would you say that, or what was going on for you? What happened, do you think?
Um, a new question came up for me um, after my most recent breakup,
Yeah.
and that was 3, 4 years ago. And it was why do I want to be in a relationship anyway?
Mm,
What's my why? What is the question? Now,
yeah.
this is
Yes.
a big spanning. Why is it that I want to have a relationship anyway? What is it that I
Hmm.
lack that I want others to give me that I can't give myself to me to myself by myself?
Oh my
So
gosh. Got
then
it.
all of a sudden the need for finding external, filling my own lack with something external was
Yeah.
gone. It was just
Yeah.
it disappeared.
This
That was
in this question, you add the answer basically by asking this question, by facing the pain. Not a lot of people will actually ask themselves why they want to be in a relationship. They'll just be too busy being frantic and spinning their wheels and how they can find the right date and person.
yeah, or
But yeah,
go through their pain of the breakup by
yeah,
going directly into a new relationship. That's what I did before,
yeah.
and it was the normal thing for me to do. I never thought that was something wrong until it dawned on me. Oh yeah, right. Why am I doing this anyway?
That's a very common response, and I think this is just so beautifully connected with our topic today because you allowed yourself to sit with the pieces, like we say in the kintsugi workshops. The kintsugi being
Oh
the
yeah.
Japanese art of golden lacquer, the
Hmm.
Japanese repair pottery with the golden glue, and that makes it even more beautiful
Hmm.
after it's broken and repaired than when it was intact because of
Right.
all the beautiful golden scars. And we can see the human soul and like that, right? So
Hmm.
after all the our hardship, we look even more beautiful. And but before gluing things back together, before rushing to do that, apparently there's an important phase during these workshops, and I don't know if I talked about it already, but people have to actually sit with the pieces just to look at the pieces, and
Hmm.
that's not fun. And I feel like maybe that's what you did before jumping in the next relationship. It's like, why do I want to be with someone?
Hmm.
What is it fulfilling? What is it filling?
Hmm.
Tolerating that void, that silence, that emptiness, I think is a very important part of the teaching too.
Yes, it
Yeah.
certainly was for me, and
Yeah.
it really opened a completely new world to me when I dared to step through that door of and ask myself that question.
Yes. Wow. What a great process. Thank you. Very
Mm.
inspiring.
Thank you. So, how do you want to wrap this episode up then?
Yeah.
After these, your wonderful experience and
Mm.
mine. So, how do we tie the knots
Yeah. My
with this?
takeaways for today are really, first of all, acknowledging that there's a pain or a suffering happening
Yes.
and not creating a story, but just noticing how it feels in our body and um, really developing self compassion and feeling
Hmm.
that we're connected with others because others are going through suffering too in their own way. It's just the packaging that's different.
Hmm.
But we all go through some pain in life and hardship and really try to not avoid it, but embracing it and I mean, welcoming even this suffering as a teaching opportunity. And these would be my main takeaways. And I would like to hear yours.
It's I can't really add anything good to that because it's you said it so wonderfully. Um, just to I what I could add is something that I mentioned before already. One of my favorite authors, Chris Niebauer, in his book No Self, No Problem, he mentioned the left brain and the right brain hemisphere,
Yeah.
and he the left brain is the one that wants to keep us going on and rushing forward and um,
Hmm.
not stopping and
Right.
going on with what we have been doing all the time. And the if we allow the right brain to kick in and to be more reasonable and to
Yeah.
uh, allow ourselves to slow down and think and watch the broken vase or the
Hmm.
uh, the pieces of whatever happened to us, whatever broke in our lives,
Yeah.
just to become aware. Okay, that's it, and what can I take? Can I repair this? Do I want to repair this? And can it be something even more beautiful afterwards?
Correct.
And
Yes.
that's the essence, I think, of this question avoidance and embracing. There's no win in avoiding. I think
No.
we can under the if we
Mhm.
draw a line and put the end result there, I
No.
would go and say uh, avoidance is never the right thing to do.
Yes, because something
Embracing
is
is.
left unfinished, and life will find a way
Mm,
to bring us back to the same task to complete. So yeah, embracing
mhm.
is the key, and this is how we transcend or put ourselves above a difficult experience. You know.
Yes,
Yeah, embrace. Do not fear and
yes,
embrace.
right. Do not fear and embrace.
You're a
So,
dandelion, so you can do this. You can.
and so are you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, Caroline, and thanks everyone who watched and listened. And I would really love to hear your thoughts or read your thoughts in the. If you wouldn't want to leave some words in the comments and leave us a like if you like this episode. And don't forget to let us know what you would like us to do better next time. Or maybe you have a topic idea of your own that you want us to talk about in one of the upcoming episodes. So thank you very much and see you next time. Bye bye,
Bye.
Caroline.
Be in peace, everyone. Take care. Bye, Christopher.
Bye bye.